The college basketball experience, Duke Blue Devils offseason check-in episode on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Play their fantasy pickup for a chance to win 100 times the amount of money you enter in NBA, MLB, MMA, ULF, NHL, golf, and much, much more. Sign up today at UnderdogFantasy.com using the promo code TCESGPN to get a 100% deposit match. Plus, the NFL draft is coming up, and the Old Fashioned Football Podcast is giving away some autographed NFL merch. Head to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/off contest. That's OFF contest to enter today. And remember, as always, folks, to let it ride.
What's up, everybody? This is Cameron Krog from Loyola Chicago Ramblers, and you're listening to SGPN. Let it ride. Shout out to the Broad Stop. Thank you, guys.
Basketball experience. Duke Blue Devils off-season check-in episode. Oh, what, you thought we were done talking college hoops? I know Moneyline Mac has been delivering top-notch grade A content regarding just a hilarious coaching cycle and the transfer portal, which is obviously we'll talk about that, but the coaching cycle. I mean, if you haven't checked out those episodes on the college basketball experience, go check those out, because I mean, it's not often, in my opinion, that you get a coach winning 20 games at SMU who gets fired, which they've only had, I think, 21 seasons in the past 30 years. Then he lands at Rice, so Rice upgrades. Then you have Musselman leave Arkansas for USC after USC's coach leaves for SMU. And then you have Kentucky sitting coach leave to Arkansas. What is happening with college basketball? Go check out all those episodes. YouTube.com, also the /the college experience. You can watch all of those episodes. And that's just the coaching cycle. And that's just a little bit of the coaching cycle. Then there's transfer portal episodes, as you know, with that ruling in West Virginia back in December, where anyone can transfer now. It doesn't matter if you've transferred before. It's been chaotic. I want to say it's over 2,000 players that have been, and we're expecting a lot more using, kind of the portal as leverage. So we're going to talk all about the Duke Blue Devils on this particular episode. Obviously, key in on what's going on there. I was surprised on a couple of transfers there we'll get to, but you're probably wondering who the hell you're listening to. And that's fair. My name is Colby Swig at Database Dan, aka Pick Dundee. That's not a pick. This is a pick.
He was raised in the land down under, where a man thinks on his feet, speaks with his fists, and lives by his wits.
When Dundee happened, he was a superstar.
I'm probably drinking too much and celebrating too much and not sleeping. Would have killed a normal man, but no, that's gone. The medical advice I got from that was like being hit by lightning. Pretend it never happened and get on with your life.
Yes. That's what you got to do if you're a coach these days and you see your team hit the portal. Pretend it never happened. Go grab a cocktail, and then tomorrow you start bringing in some guys from the portal. Perhaps. In wanting to do this episode, I feel like we got to get someone that knows Duke basketball through and through. He's got a Cherokee Parks jersey somewhere in his fucking house. Guarantee you that. He's got a Mark Allery bobblehead somewhere there too. Give it up for, the DFS god himself, the rooftop IPA drinking, homebrew making, tobacco road living, the free lock giving, former Herndon Basketball League MVP. Give it up for NC Nick in the place to be.
There we go. What's going on, man?
It's hard to. Like every time I sign on to Twitter, it's just like, I mean, I need a whiskey. I couldn't imagine the coaches. I need a whiskey just for reading. I'm like, oh, wait. Michael Parrish went to Ohio State. All this every day. There's a player going. More than every day, more than just one player. It's just chaos right now. And I even think at least for myself. I know you are a Duke fan, so maybe you saw the writing on the wall a little more. But before we get into exactly what Jon Scheyer is entering, year 3 now. He's 27-9 in both of his first 2 years. Lost in the round of 32 in year 1, and then last season an Elite Eight run.
There we go.
It's the offseason. Is there's no pressure? You made the Elite Eight, right? Is there? I mean, Duke's always going to have pressure, but I'm saying, is there pressure?
I mean, the seat's not hot at all, but yes, there's always pressure. And this coming year, due to the roster turnover, which I think is partially by design, whether you agree with that approach or not, I think there's more pressure because if it doesn't work out this coming year, a lot of people are going to be pointing towards, why did you kind of run people out of town? I just remember the good old days where April was a very quiet month in college basketball, as was most of May. And then you had like the deadline in late May where you were either going pro or not. But that's a thing of the past, because man, it has been crazy. And I mean, especially as a Duke fan, like every other day there's been like a new announcement or something. It's been active.
Yeah. So how would you grade? I mean, I know this is random. How would you grade Scheyer's first 2 years? Is that like an A? Is that a B? I think when we had Jay Billis on the show, I think he said A. Well, that was a year ago though. But what would
it's definitely not an A. I mean, look, Duke fans, myself included, are spoiled. If you don't go to the Final Four, actually put it this way, I would say Elite Eight, the year is average. Final Four, it's a good year. Anything less than Elite Eight doesn't live up to our standards. So
I mean, hold on. I
don't get the brain man.
That's what it is.
But the good news is Carolina didn't. When they lose Elite Eight?
No,
Sweet 16, right?
16.
Yeah, they lost the Sweet 16. So, but there's a little bit of pressure because those Wolfpack, those Pussy Pack down there in Raleigh, made the Final Four.
I think if you ask Kansas fans, Kentucky fans, UNC fans, they're not happy with the Sweet 16.
Yeah,
you want at least to go Elite Eight, and then in Final Four, and then I mean you're happy. Elite Eight, you're not mad, but you're not happy. Final Four, you're happy. Anything less than that, you're not happy. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, so this year, ultimately, expectations were high, and I don't think this team lived up to the expectations. I thought they were going to be better. If you look at it, at a conference, they had a couple good wins. They beat Baylor, Michigan State. In conference, they beat the teams they were supposed to beat, but they lost to UNC twice.
Best one of the whole season was Houston. I don't care I understand the injury angle, but it's still the best one of the whole season, I think.
Yeah, it was, and it would have been even that much better if Shed didn't get hurt in the first half. I mean, but injuries happen. Like, Duke was without Caleb Foster for the last 2 or 3 weeks of the year. Not to compare Shed and Foster. Shed's obviously the much more important player to his team, but that was a good win. Sure. It was our only good win for like 2 or 3 months, because we were basically just beating the teams we were supposed to beating like the above average ACC teams. So overall, it was a little bit of a disappointment, but I still grade the season as like a C plus B. I mean, we were in the Elite Eight. We were up by 6 at halftime to get to the Final Four.
I mean, that loss has to bother though. I feel like you shouldn't be losing to NC State.
Well, true, but I didn't mind that loss that much because I didn't feel like this Duke team really earned a Final Four berth, and I also didn't feel like we were going to beat Purdue or UConn.
I'm just saying, big picture, that NC State won 2 of 3, right? They only played 3 times and they won 2 of 3.
Right.
That can't be good, with Raleigh, right? With the Pussy Pack right down the road. But I
don't
see
think that matters as much. I mean, I tip your cap to NC State for winning those games. I don't think it has a long-term effect. Like they're going to start bringing in more talent than Duke or something. So I just think that was, NC State was on a crazy run, and shit happens.
Yeah, I see 103 people in here. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. The chat is rocking. YouTube.com/the college experience. Shout out to Channing Brown and Ryan saying, as if they get their own show. He's pissed off that the Blue Devils get their own show. It's about those clicks, man. It's A plus B equals C.
I think I saw like a Kansas show.
Yeah,
wasn't there a Kentucky show? I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean,
of course Duke gets its own show. Come on, Ryan. Even if you hate them, there was a reason why the Duke NC State game was that Elite Eight game was one of the most highly watched games of the whole tournament. One of the highly most watched games of like last
past
decade.
5-6 years, I think. Yeah. And shout out to Dave in the chat. Can't keep recruiting over the guys, no matter how many stars the incoming guys have. Dave's a UConn fan, so he's enjoying the back-to-back national championships.
Hey, Dave, who is the guy that picked UConn to win the whole thing? When the brackets were released, I said, you know what? I hate taking a team to win back to back, but I'm taking the best damn team in the nation, and that was UConn.
Yeah. Hey, I had Houston, and I feel like if you told me Jamal Shedd's injured, I wouldn't have picked Houston.
Even if he's healthy, they weren't better than UConn. There's no way. There's no way in hell.
Too. But I think they would have beat Purdue.
Could possibly, sure.
I think their athleticism would have gave them fits, but it would have been a better game than the Purdue game. I'll tell you that.
Potentially.
But yeah, folks, look, we're going to talk who left Durham, who's coming in, why maybe Jon Scheyer's reluctancy to use the transfer portal. We're going to talk all that. But before we do that, I want to tell you folks out there that the college basketball experience, well, first off, you're listening to the college basketball experience, and we are part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, and we have the Hockey Gambling Podcast, which you should be checking out because the puck has dropped on the Stanley Cup playoffs. And the guys at the Hockey Gambling Podcast have you covered. Whether it's if you're in North Carolina, the Hurricanes are projected to win the Stanley Cup. So check out Taylor, Ryan, and Joel breaking down every series, every game over on the Hockey Gambling Podcast. Subscribe to the Hockey Gambling Podcast wherever you get your podcast. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Yes, the NBA playoffs are currently going on as well, and our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, wants to make it a lot more interesting. Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports. Playing their pick'em game is as simple as selecting higher or lower on player stats like points, rebounds, assists, and much, much more. And make entries of all basketball, or mix and match across your favorite sports. Maybe you do want to play a ULF, a St. Louis Battlehawk, or perhaps a Washington Capital mixed with one of some of your NBA players that you like. That's what's great about Underdog. You can cross sports there, and Underdog's available in 30 plus states, including California and Texas. Also, Canada. Don't want to hear any excuses for the Canadians. You can get in there. All right. So what are you doing, folks? Hop over to Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code TCE SGPN to double your first deposit up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy promo code TCE SGPN. All right, we are back, and I see Hunter Vick saying, "How am I missing college basketball this much already? I know it's tough. Check out. I mean, it's right now to me. Like I just said, I just promoted the Hockey Gambling Podcast. We have the NBA Gambling Podcast, but to me, college baseball experience, college football experience. We're dropping episodes. Spring games were happening. The ULF Gambling Podcast. We have the CFL Gambling Podcast. There's options. Golf gambling. Masters just happened. I don't know. You gotta check out other stuff. We got
not the same.
F1 Gambling Podcast. There was big time races going on left and right. So
I kind of agree with Hunter. It's not quite the same. I mean, this weekend specifically, like the sports man is like, come on, man, I need something more. I know there's stuff out there, but it's not the same.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to have it like basketball or football, but I'm satisfied for off-season sports. MLB Gambling Podcast. There's a lot of shit out there. A lot of shit out there to go check out on SGPN too. But I get his point. I get his point at the same time. All right. Well, look, if you're watching on YouTube.com/the college experience, I did make some graphics for us. Let me just make sure I have this set up better. There we go. For the Duke Blue Devils. So departing the Duke Blue Devils, and I want to get your comments. So we have basically 7 players have left, led by Jeremy Roach, the senior guard, which is rumored. He's rumored to go to Baylor. Mark Mitchell has already committed to Missouri, and Dennis Gates, Jaden Shutt, Christian Reeves, Jalen Blakes, TJ Power, Sean Stewart. Oh God, 7 guys gone in the portal, not to the NBA, to the portal. I mean, I was surprised at Roach and Mitchell, and I guess a little bit Shutt.
So I mean, in general, like I know it's a great headline. You know what's going on at Duke, mass exodus, 7 players in the portal. But if you look at it, and I'm not saying I agree with this, but Duke has 6 freshmen coming in, and they're talking to 3 transfers who they've already landed 1. And you knew this year they were only going to lose a handful of guys. You knew they're going to lose Ryan Young to graduation. And then we knew Filipowski was going to go pro. And then turns out Jeremy Kane went pro too. So right there, it's a numbers game. There's not enough, scholarships. So one critique you could say is, why is Scheyer bringing in 6 freshmen when you have a lot of people who are going to, who still have eligibility, are probably not going to go pro. It's basically like, I'm bringing these guys in because we don't think you're good enough. In some cases, that's accurate. So like right off, like that list right there, I would say Jalen Blakes, Jaden Shutt, Christian Reeves. Nothing against those guys, but they were buried way down on the bench. They were never really going to get minutes at Duke. They need to go down a level and get playing time somewhere. So right off the bat, those 3 guys, they're not going to be missed. I mean, they were good guys, great practice players, but they were never going to see meaningful minutes.
Talking about practice, not a game.
If you saw Jalen Blakes play in the Vermont game, if you saw a couple of the plays on offense where he couldn't even dribble, I mean, it was like, the guy's always been like a effort guy, good defense, but just brought nothing to the table offensively. And it sure seemed like Christian Reeves and Jaden Shutt probably weren't going to be at that level ever either. So good luck to them in the future, but they weren't going to get minutes at Duke, really.
Well, and by the way, I just saw you guys schedule Kansas, and that game's in Vegas. Why can't they do a fucking home and home? I'm sick of watching this. There was talks about that. Apparently those talks faded. So Duke and Arizona did that. They have the home and home.
Yeah.
Last year was in Cameron, this year at Arizona. But I love the fact that right off the bat, Duke is playing Kentucky, Kansas, Arizona, and then another team in the ACC SEC challenge. So I just wish we would get more. Like there seems to be a trend to me. Yeah. On not, and I'm not calling out Duke scheduling. I'm saying all of college basketball. It's like Purdue playing Arizona in Indianapolis. Yeah. Or FAU in Arizona playing in Vegas. And there you can go for each team, God damn it, play on campus. That's where you can sell your product the best. Yeah. Right? So but the weird thing that Duke plays Kentucky, they play Kansas every 3 years anyway, due to that Champions Classic. Yeah. So if they were to schedule a home and home, well, they're not going to play twice next year. So they'd have to skip a year. So maybe logistically it was just easier just to do one game rather than try to schedule 2 games, considering they play every 3rd year anyway. This isn't rocket science. You can figure this fucking thing out. All right. Good God. A lot of smart people at Duke and Kansas. They probably could have figured it out. I mean, didn't Chicago State play like one school like 5 times this past year? You can put both on the schedule. Anyway, so I mean, let's talk though about Roach and Mitchell. Wait, who was the 3rd guy that you were surprised? All right. So Blake's, Shutt, Reeves, they're going to transfer down, get more playing time. Makes sense. Mark Mitchell, he was one of the first guys to transfer out. And let's face it, the guy had a bad sophomore season. It started the first game against Arizona, where Arizona basically put the blueprint out there where we're not going to guard you. We're going to force you to hit an open jump shot or make a play. And too often he couldn't this year. He had some decent games, but his 3-point percentage dropped from 35% as a freshman to just 27.5%. And really, the spacing was offensively with him on the court, wasn't good for Duke. But also, still, he's a good player. He is a good player, but right? I think it was a mutual thing where
let him go find his confidence elsewhere, not under the Duke spotlight. Because I do still think he can be a good player. That's why he was scooped up very quickly by Mizzou. But he had a bad sophomore season. He had a very bad tournament. Played decent against Vermont, but then against NC State, Houston, and James Madison, he scored a combined 8 points in those 3 games on 4 of 13 shooting. And he got completely owned by Harrison Ingram in both of the Duke UNC games.
But shouldn't that feed you to want to come back and beat that? And I don't know. Like, I just feel like he's a valuable player still, and he's only going to get better, right? He's a sophomore.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, look, that's very true. All those things are true, and I still think he can be a very good player at Missouri. But I do think it was kind of a mutual thing, and it was a little frustrating watching him this year because I thought he was going to have a much better sophomore season.
Well, TBM Larry says Mitchell had the highest winning percentage of anybody the last 2 years. Wait, wasn't Filipowski there too then?
And Roach and
Proctor of all your transfers, maybe? No, Roach was there. I don't know. Kevin in the chat says this is the best sports info / gambling channel on YouTube. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate you.
So Mark Mitchell, yes. Will he be missed? Yes, but I think I'm okay with that actually, because I do think maybe a change of scenery would be good for him to regain some confidence and turn into the player that, the best player that he can be.
Okay, but hold on. And you said you were not surprised at 3 of them leaving. So Mitchell.
All right, so the next would be TJ Power, 5-star freshman. Didn't see the floor a whole lot this year. I'm a little conflicted on this one. I would have liked to see him stay there. In his freshman season, he's a very good 3-point shooter, but he brought nothing else to the table. He's 6'9", but
he's a freshman though.
But 42 of his 51 field goal attempts were threes. So he wasn't doing anything else. He was a defensive.
Jack Golke?
Yeah, seriously.
Is that our friend of the program?
6'9", and he was a defensive liability. He didn't really rebound much, and I still think though that you're not going to cross him off as a bust because he was just a freshman. Some players take more time to develop. I would have liked to see Duke keep TJ Power. I think he can turn into a pretty good player, but it really comes down to minutes. He didn't play much as a freshman. With the players coming in, and also especially with Duke entertaining a couple power forwards, 4-spot guys in the portal. Basically, Scheyer said, "I think we can do better getting a portal veteran over TJ Power." Whether you agree with that or not, I don't know, but I think that's ultimately what the decision was.
Yeah. TBM Larry says no. I guess they're accounting for games missed. So he's saying that Mitchell has the best win percentage because there was games the others missed.
He was hurt this year for a handful of games. I think he played every game as a freshman.
And wasn't Roach dinged up a year or two ago? I feel like
Roach missed a couple games the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Proctor missed a couple games this year. Caleb Foster missed the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season. I don't know. So anyway, to TJ Power, I would say not a major loss, but in general, like as a fan, you want to see players develop in your system and you want to see them get better, and you want to see them there for a few years. So I was a little bit bummed about Power.
Yeah, and then Jeremy Roach, which, like I said, I can't help but think if Baylor lands him, he's perfect for Baylor to me. Did I say TJ Roach? Jeremy Roach. I was surprised at that. I mean, I was surprised at Mitchell too. I mean, I wouldn't say Power. I was super surprised at, but Roach and Mitchell, I was surprised just because I think you'd want to bring back you're seeing the college basketball landscape change so much over, look at the teams in the Final Four every year. They're all super experienced.
Yeah. So Roach is the one that does sting the most. I mean, he was at Duke for 4 years. He started at least 3 of those 4 years. He even started a little bit as a freshman. Just speculation here. I think this was more his decision. I don't think it was a mutual one. My guess is that he wasn't interested in basically babysitting 6 freshmen this year, because he's had to do that kind of every year. I think, obviously he's going to be highly sought after in the transfer market. There's rumors about Baylor, even though that 1.5 million, he already shot that down. I don't know if you saw that.
Well, I mean, I just saw 24/7 Sports say like Baylor is they give like a percentage, and they think he's going to be at Baylor. Maybe he's going to get more money.
No,
I don't know,
there was rumors that Baylor's NIL offered him $1.5 million, and he responded to that directly on Twitter saying he wishes, with a smiley face. Like, so Baylor still
step up, Baylor.
Yeah, Baylor still very might well land him, but apparently it's not. Apparently that was an inflated number. Yeah, who knows? Roach is a hell of a player. I guess his one downfall is he's a little bit of a defensive liability given his like 6'1" size. So he's a little undersized, but look, I mean, the guy is a veteran in college basketball. He's played in the Final Four. He's played in some of the biggest atmospheres there is. So
if Baylor gets him, that's a great fucking get for Baylor.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I just hope Duke doesn't have to play him this year because it would be mixed emotions because any Duke fan is a big Jeremy Roach fan, and also he was like kind of the bridge between Coach K and Coach Scheyer. So that one stung the most. And then the last guy is Sean Stewart, who I thought that guy was fucking just dripping with potential. And one of my criticisms about Scheyer this year is that Sean Stewart should have played more minutes. He was a freshman, but every time he took the court, like he made a play that would just turn your head. Whether it was a block or an alley-oop, or he just brought energy. I thought he really had a chance to develop into a hell of a player, and I think he has next level talent, NBA talent.
So you're pretty disappointed then overall of all the amount of players leaving. Then I know we're going to get to the incoming here in a second,
right. But I mean, in general, I like more roster continuity. But on the other hand, Duke had 0 transfers last year and ultimately had kind of a disappointing season.
True. And they had Ryan Young, that was 2 years ago. They got Ryan Young, right? From Northwestern. Yeah. Right. All right, let's talk about the incoming side of things because the freshman class is number 1, but they also just brought in a transfer.
Yeah, stick to transfers first.
Yeah.
So they brought in Malik Brown from Syracuse.
Yeah.
And so he's basically the Sean Stewart replacement. He is he could start at the 4 or maybe he comes off the bench, but he played 30 minutes a game for Syracuse. He dropped 26 on Duke last year. So the guy's an offensive threat, more of an offensive threat than Sean Stewart right now. And he's also pretty good at defense. And you know what? Duke will get him for 2 years. Now, I think Sean Stewart has more long-term potential, but you could argue Malik Brown is a better fit for next year than Sean Stewart. So if you're getting in the mind of Jon Scheyer, maybe he is entertaining transfers like Malik Brown because he thinks he's only thinking for next year.
Yeah, but so then you still have the 6 freshmen coming in: Cooper Flagg, Isaiah Evans, those 2 forwards that are 5 stars. The big man, the center, Kon Knueppel, I think it is. Knueppel, I think it is. Maybe the K is silent. He's a 5-star. And then 2 4-stars with Patrick Gangba the second.
That's right.
And Darren Harris, as well as another 5-star in Khaman
Malauch.
God damn it. I was way off. Malauch sounds like a fucking animal on a safari or something.
Yeah,
like, that's why you watch out for the Malauch at midnight. No,
I still think we need to talk about one more transfer first. And it's not, Duke hasn't landed him yet, but it sounds like they're going to get Mason Gillis from Purdue. And basically he's going to take the role that TJ Power did because Mason Gillis shot 46.8 from 3 last year. So he's going to be basically their stretch 4.
Why is Gillis even in the portal?
I don't know.
When I look at Purdue, I know they lose Edey. I'm assuming. I know that there's technically the COVID season where he could come back. If I was Edey, I would take a bunch of money and come back. But you're still gonna be a tournament team. It's not like they'll be horrible.
I don't think he was happy losing playing time to some of the younger players at Purdue last year. Kaufman, Wren, and some of the others. But I mean, Mason Gillis still played 20 minutes a game. Like I said, he's a stretch 4.
And he, 3. Yeah.
And he is definitely, if they land him, he is definitely an improvement over TJ Power next year. So
of course, because he's a super fucking veteran. He's been in college 10
exactly.
years.
And this is going to be a really young Duke team. So getting Malik Brown, who played 30 minutes a game in the ACC last year, compared to Sean Stewart, who played less than 10 minutes, And if they get Mason Gillis over TJ Power, ultimately, I think those guys are more suited to produce right away than the transfers who left.
David in the chat says, "Get this Blue Devil bullshit out of here." He's an Arizona Wildcat fan, so I'm sure he's licking his chops and getting them in Tucson this year. TBM Larry though brings up a good point. Where are the guards, Nick?
Well, yeah, I mean that's why Jeremy Roach coming back would have been so great. Now, so the big questions with Duke this year, Tyrese Proctor. You know, he's another guy
So who's returning that we know?
Tyrese Proctor and Caleb Foster.
Yeah,
that's the backcourt right now. I still think they probably get another veteran, probably a backup point guard somewhere in the portal. I mentioned Foster. Duke really missed him the last 3 weeks of the year when he went out for the year in that Wake Forest game. It's not like he was a big time scorer or anything, but he basically won the starting point guard role, and Proctor was coming off the bench. So I think Foster has a chance to blossom with a less crowded backcourt in his second year. But the big question is Tyrese Proctor. You know, he was way too inconsistent last year. He didn't really make a jump from his freshman to sophomore campaign. He needs to be an alpha. This is his team now. Now he is really the only upperclassman who's returning. Can he make that next?
Let me say something though, because I do think, and I was talking about this. I was on the Hoops Peterson podcast about a week ago or 4 or 5 days ago, and the portal, some people are hopping in the portal for leverage. So I don't know for sure until you see them go to another team. They might just hop in the portal to play the game to get the most amount of money possible. So is there potentially Jeremy Roach doing that, you think?
I don't think he's coming back to Duke. No, I don't think it's that. I don't think it's leverage. I think he said he's going to go pro or go portal. I don't think he's much of an NBA, talent. So no, I don't think it's leverage. I think he is gone. I mean, if that's not the case, I would definitely welcome him back for sure. Also looking at your graphic, Flagg is with 2 G's. But,
I'm sorry.
But close. Yeah. But go back to Proctor one more second though. I mean, he can be a big time defensive stopper. Like look at what he locked down LJ Cryer to 2 points in the last 10 minutes of that Houston game. Was all over him. So if he can be more consistent offensively, the backcourt is fine at least starting. Depth wise is a little bit of a concern. Isaiah Evans, Kon Knueppel, they're classified as wings, but I mean they can certainly play a 2 also. And the good thing about Proctor and Foster is that both of them can run point or play 2. So there's some flexibility there, but I would say depth is a little bit of a concern. I wouldn't be surprised if they bring in one more transfer there.
Let's assume, okay, we know Malik Brown's coming in. Let's assume Mason Gillis. Let's assume, a decent guard. Is there enough experience to really go deep in March though?
Well, that's the question. I mean, then you would have 3 upperclassmen in Proctor, Gillis, and Malik Brown. You would have a shit ton of freshmen. One of the good things is that your whole roster is 6'5" and above. You're going to have quite possibly the tallest, longest team in the nation. Defensively, they should be really good, but that's the thing, man. I mean, and look, we haven't mentioned that much about Cooper Flagg. Some people are saying that he is the best prospect since Anthony Davis. Some people says since LeBron. So what is his impact right away? Does he step in and become one of the best players in college basketball? Or is there a freshman curve and he is, he's like one of the Duke one and dones who is, really good, but not necessarily going to take you to the Final Four himself. Yeah. So talent wise, I mean, Duke is going to be right there with anybody, but they are going to be young, and it's going to take a while for all these new faces to gel, including the older transfers.
Yeah, shout out to Colby Summers in the chat talking, bringing up a bunch of elements about this Duke team. But see, that's the thing to me though. I don't know that you can win anymore with just bringing in a bunch of freshmen like Calipari would do every year. And he's kind of like the best walking experience the best example would be Kentucky every year. Now, maybe some of that's to coaching. I tend to think some of it is, but I just don't know. Like if you look at like the past like 4 or 5 Final Fours, I don't even know if there's really been a young team. I guess Florida Atlantic, but they were still somewhat like, weren't they juniors?
Well, what about Duke?
That's true under Coach K, but there's not many. My point is that there's more,
for sure,
way more experienced teams than there are experienced teams that made it to the Final Four. I think, like I said, FAU, maybe you could argue, but I want to say they were still juniors.
Well, there's not too many teams bringing in these kinds of freshman recruiting classes anymore either. It was, for the most part, it was just Duke and Kentucky. And yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, that's definitely a concern. You look at the roster right now, and you have two people who are upperclassmen. You know, Proctor and Malik Brown, and Malik Brown's never put on a Duke jersey before. So yeah, obviously that is a concern, and recent history tells you that those very young teams are going to flame out early in March. But I still think this team has
a higher upside. You think?
The upside is fucking off the charts.
Especially for this year, though, it's a higher upside than you would have with Mitchell and Roach on this team. You think?
Well, over who though? Like
over the team that we're seeing now. Well, I guess we don't know who they're bringing in.
I would love if Roach was still there. I'm actually okay with Mitchell leaving because I think our front court is really loaded, and that's the other guy that we haven't talked a whole lot about either. Even though I told you how to pronounce Malauch. This guy is 7'1", 250. He's got a crazy wingspan. He's got some skill to his game. He actually has like a jump shot, but I mean, defense, rebounding, the alley-oop game. I think he's going to start at the 5 day one. He's a projected lottery pick next year. I mean, Cooper Flagg is he's a projected number 1 overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft, where Malauch is top 10, projected. And he's a player that Duke didn't have this past year. He's the big 7-footer, the rim protector. He's like the Mark Williams, the Derek Lively. So I do think this Duke team can be very good defensively.
And you saw the national championship have a couple bigs. I'm sorry, you sent me down a rabbit hole also of but the national championship had two elite big men. And if anything, you look, like I said, previous Final Four teams, was Vlad Golden, the big for San Diego State. What was his name? He was a great rim protector. It was an African name. I'm drawing a blank on it right now. Yeah. But I'm down a rabbit hole on the Alaska Malamute, which arrived in the Americas 12,000 years ago. Just because his name sounds like it. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I think that is a big piece.
But to your point, none of those guys you mentioned were freshmen either.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's going to be interesting to see if they can. I just want to see, maybe you think they will be super more, aggressive in the portal to bring in a couple other. Is there a shot that we're like not seeing someone that could be a huge addition on this team?
I don't think so. I think the starting lineup is relatively set. Even though I think if Mason Gillis comes in, he could start some games too. But I think right now you're probably looking at depth. I think minutes is gonna be hard to come by now. So I think any like top transfer in the nation, out there right now, they're looking for minutes. So they're probably not looking for Duke. I think right now we're picking up complementary pieces. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I'm excited, even though I don't necessarily like kind of how so many players transferred out, including freshmen who have a lot of potential. I don't want to bring in 6 new freshmen every year and have 3 or 4 guys transfer out every year. I want some roster continuity. I want you to, if Scheyer goes after a freshman, just because they don't have a fantastic freshman season, that doesn't mean they can't turn into a very good player.
There's plenty of examples of freshmen that struggled, that somehow found their game or worked on their game and became amazing. But you've knocked Scheyer on the show. I remember end of the season, you said he doesn't use the portal correctly. He doesn't use the portal much. Is Gillis, if he brings in Gillis and he pairs him with Malik Brown on a guard, is that using the portal correctly in your mind?
Well, I mean, he's basically choosing Malik Brown and Mason Gillis over TJ Power and Sean Stewart. So in some regard, he is utilizing the portal to bring in more experienced players than those players that were existing on his roster. But I don't like getting rid of Stewart and Power because I thought they could become good players. So roster construction is a very interesting thing in college basketball these days. I think Scheyer is still kind of playing around with different ways to do it. I'm not sure if he's settled on the best path yet, or maybe that's every year it changes. I don't know.
Yeah. It's got to be fascinating to watch, folks. We just wanted to do this quick little check-in episode. I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about there, NC Nick.
Not really. I mean, at first I was bummed with a lot of the transfers leaving, but I'm coming around to getting excited about this team, with the main hesitation being their inexperience.
Yeah. It reminds me of Kentucky in a way. Folks, give NC Nick a follow on Twitter at NC__NICK. If you check out the college basketball experience, he's on the show often. So he is also one of the hosts of the college football experience and Duke football. Manny Diaz era.
I watched the spring game yesterday, looking pretty good.
I caught the Wake Forest spring game yesterday too. So you get over there. I mean, look, here's the thing about Duke is focusing on football so much. I think they should, and I think that the football is driving the needle. With all of this realignment shit. So Duke obviously losing Mike Elko was terrible, but they've been a lot better in football. It started under Cutcliffe. Let's see if Manny Diaz can continue that. We'll preview the Duke Blue Devils. We've already kind of talked about the hire of Manny Diaz on the college football experience, but we're going to preview them as a team in the next 2 months here. So
who looked pretty good in the spring game?
Who's that?
Malik Murphy.
Yes, the quarterback transfer from Texas coming in, and he can be. And look, Manny Diaz, he didn't do an awful job at Miami. He just did what every other coach did at Miami. 7-5, 6-6. So, and there was a lot of pressure. His dad was like the former fucking mayor of Miami. Sometimes good to get away from dad. Hey, fuck you, dad. Get out of there. Right. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting to watch, to see how their football team does life after Mike Elko. We're going to have you covered on the College Football Experience. Subscribe over there. Also, check out the FCS College Football Experience. Maybe you're listening to this and you're a North Carolina Central fan, a Gardner-Webb fan, a Western Carolina fan. Shout out to Weehawk. There's more in North Carolina A&T, the rivals of Central. Elon, the Phoenix is rising. They've been playing better and better. Check out the FCS College Football Experience. Check out the College Baseball Experience. The Duke Blue Devils also have a very good baseball team this year, as the ACC is pretty good this year with Wake Forest and Duke. Maybe Florida State and Miami aren't what they once were, but Clemson, Clemson, Wake Forest, Duke, Carolina,
NC State keeps a decent program. So check out the College Baseball Experience as the road to Omaha heats up. And yeah, folks, I'm on Twitter at @TheColbyD. Give me a follow. The College Basketball Experience is on Twitter at TCE on SGPN. And look, we're here all off season. We're going to go through major matchups, transfer portal, other coaching. Look, last year we lost some coaches in the middle of the fucking summer. So that might happen again. You don't know. So we're going to be here talking about all the hires, all the breakdowns, everything. College basketball. We never stop talking college hoops or college football. All right. So hop on over there. Check us out. Until next time, folks. This is the College Basketball Experience. You better start thinking about yours. And we out of here.